you do exactly what you feel like doing. So, this is how we're going to change what your feelings are. Have you ever wanted to go to the gym? You wanted to eat healthy. You wanted to change a habit in your life, but you just couldn't find the motivation. Like you literally think about it, you know the right thing to do, but you just don't feel like it. So you don't do it. Today, that's what we're talking about is how to change our feelings, that motivation, so that we can actually do what it is we're wanting to do in our life with our time, our energy, and our resources. My goal is to help you become the person you want to become because you can. Do you believe that? If you actually believe that, you're going to slowly make progress every single day to become a woman or a man that you are proud of becoming. And I'm going to show you how to do that through 3 simple steps today. The first step that we're going to look at in this episode is all about the power of self-talk and how we use self-talk. Like, what's the point of it? There's a man named Shad Helmstetter, and he wrote an incredible book called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. And if you've listened to my content, you have probably heard me mention this book a million times because it has really impacted me. But in this book, what he talks about is he goes through 5 different stages to help you understand what's happening on a neuro level. So the first thing is that programming creates our beliefs, then our beliefs create our attitudes. The third thing is our attitudes then create feelings that we have every single day, and then our feelings determine our actions. And then the 5th step is that our actions create results in our life. And so I'm going to show you today how to break this down, how to gain control of this through self-talk so that you're becoming the person you want to become. If you want to be a motivated, disciplined person, you can. If you want to be someone who is an incredible individual in a specific career, you can set out to do that. The second thing we're going to dive into today is talking about the power of writing, which this really links to the podcast episode I released last week talking about journal prompts and how to really self-identify. I'm just going to give you a little bit more this week to help you build on that. And then the third thing we're going to talk about is your action step, always talking about the practical thing, like, so how do we apply this? And we're going to start small. We're going to start small with this, and I'm going to show you how you can start small so that you're changing who you're becoming and you're proud of the life that you're creating. So this really funny, crazy thing happened the other day at church. Kramer and I were sitting at church listening to the sermon. It was probably like halfway through. And in front of us, there was a family. Actually, I'm going to wait and tell you this at the end because this story is so good. So hang with me till the end, and I'm definitely going to come back to this because this kid was adorable. I can't wait to tell you this story. So today's main point, like what we're diving into, is that your thoughts dictate everything. What you think is who you're becoming. So if you don't know how to change your thought life, you're going to struggle to change your life. I know that's like being a Debbie Downer, and I feel like I'm telling you some bad news, but I have to be honest and real with you so that you can change. I don't just want to give you fluffy, encouraging words and make you feel like, oh yeah, like I'm making positive change in my life, but you're actually not. So that's the basis of this, is that I'm going to teach you how to change your thought life, what your mind defaults to. Are you thinking of people all the time? Are you playing through worst case scenarios? Are you replaying past conversations? Are you so hard and critical on yourself? We're going to get through all of that because I have to teach you how to change your thought life so you can change your life. So when we think about the Enneagram and all the 9 types and we tie this in, this is so fascinating because one of the most common themes that I hear is people saying, Callie, I don't want to get into the Enneagram because I don't want to be put in a box. Like, I hate being put in a box. Or they've asked me, like, does the Enneagram put you in a box? It puts you in a box if you allow it to put you in a box. And it puts you in a box if you choose to stay in that box. Here's the thing. The 9 Enneagram types look at our default, what our natural tendencies are based on our personality. So you guys know I'm a type 3. A type 3's natural default tendency could be to be a workaholic, could be to really chase after success and just trash their whole life trying to pursue this never-ending chase of success. That's a default, but that doesn't mean that's who I am. That's the box that I'm going to be in my whole life. The Enneagram actually helps me get out of that box by learning that that's a default and I can overcome that through different strategies and methods, and specifically changing my thought life. So that's where, if you've like asked that question or you've wondered, is the Enneagram going to put me in a box, or you have a family member that feels that way, it only puts you in a box if you stay in that box. And how we stay in that box is staying in the same toxic thought pattern. So if I never change my thoughts, if I'm always chasing success and looking to find my identity and what I do, yeah, I'm going to stay in this never-ending rat race trying to achieve my way to people's approval. That's never going to be enough. Like, it's never going to satisfy me. I was created to be satisfied by Jesus, and I have to be renewed in my mind in order to find my true satisfaction in Jesus Christ. And that's what we have to dig into to do the deep work to get out of the box. So I really want to break that mindset or that fear of like, I don't want to be put in a box. And it's like, sister, you're not going to be put in a box unless you allow yourself to stay in that box. And it's a choice. When I was in high school, I got injured quite a bit because, well, that's a whole nother thing. I think there was a lot of mental things behind it, but I would get injured, and specifically dislocating my shoulder. It was like, I think it happened 3 or 4 times. I had surgeries on either shoulder and they were pretty traumatic. Like, my shoulder would dislocate. They couldn't get it back in. So they'd have to put me under in order to put it back. And then I would have a surgery that would take like 4 to 6 months of recovery. It was pretty intense. And I played basketball and volleyball. And so in basketball, I was like going up for a rebound one time and just like my arm got ripped out. That sounds so dramatic. My arm got pulled back and my shoulder popped out of place. And it was so painful. But here's the thing. I got injured in that moment. What I was able to do with my arm before, I no longer could do. Like, I couldn't even lift it. I couldn't put up my hair. I couldn't do my makeup. I couldn't like put a shirt on normal. It was so hard because of that injury. So what would happen is I would have a scheduled surgery. They would go in, they would completely repair it. And then I had a long process of physical therapy. And if you've ever had an injury, you know exactly what this feels like. You have to consistently do your exercises every single day. And sometimes it feels so boring. Like, I would use the bands and it's just like, I'm just moving these bands, trying to exercise my arm, just trying to be able to move it again so I could do my hair or put normal clothes on. And it was a process. But if I stayed persistent with that, I wasn't doomed to that injury for life. It wasn't like, oh, Callie's never going to be able to use her arm again. I was able to strengthen and train and reteach my body essentially how to function again, how to use my arm, how to build that strength, and to jump back into life where I was before. Or sometimes I even got stronger because of the intentionality behind it. That is the same thing with our thought process, is essentially you and I being born into this sinful world. We have negative tendencies in our mind. Our default is that we're injured. Like, our mindset is injured. We are broken. We think negatively. We have toxic thoughts. We replay conversations that aren't really productive. We worry about things. We're so caught up in people pleasing. And our mind is kind of in this space that it's just injured. It's broken. But you're not doomed there. Our brain is just like my shoulder, where it's a muscle that we can exercise and we can grow. And so when you understand that and you believe, you're like, oh my gosh, like, this is something I need to work out. This is something I need to exercise. And I love this. God's word talks about exercising our mind, taking our thoughts captive, making our thoughts obedient to Jesus. That's what it's talking about. It's training in righteousness. It's training yourself to become the person you want to become. So many incredible athletes, like Olympians, professionals, they will talk to you about the power of the mental game. These athletes, people who do just like crazy things where you're like, how can they physically do that? They talk about mentally hurdles they've had to overcome, and the way that they talk to themselves, the thoughts that they have, took just as much training, I believe, as it did physical training in order to do what they're doing. And so you and I have to see our minds as a way to battle, to grow, but it's a training ground. It's something that we slowly, day by day, get to exercise and build so that that muscle becomes stronger so that we can do what we want to do. I wanted to be able to put up my hair. I wanted to be able to put clothes on. I wanted to be able to play sports again. Therefore, that was my goal. I had some intentional therapy and work I had to do to get back to that point. Same thing with our mindset. If you want to be motivated to go to the gym, If you want to be patient and quit snapping at your spouse or your children, you can. It starts with your mind, and you have some physical therapy to do on your mind so that you can have the actions and the results you want in life. That's what we're going to break down. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into this. So self-talk. What in the world is self-talk? Like, why do we need this? You've probably heard someone talk about this in your life because it is a very popular theme right now. In the past, 5 years, I would say it has become so much more popular in the sports world, the business world, even in spirituality, like people just really understanding the power of our minds. But what self-talk is simply just saying it's the way you're talking to yourself. So just in your head, your own thoughts. Like I might be sitting on the couch, I drop something and I'm like, oh, you're so clumsy, Callie. That's self-talk. Or if I say, Callie, you're going to do awesome today. Like you're going to have a great day and you're going to be disciplined and you're going to stick to your schedule. That's self-talk. So there's negative self-talk, there's positive self-talk. And how you talk to yourself is what's going to dictate what you're doing, who you're becoming. This concept is so important that I have an entire section of this in my membership program where the members and we have self-talk that we listen to. And I encourage them to do this every single day because if they transform their thoughts, they'll transform their life. And that's my goal. That's the whole point of the membership, is that people are seeing growth in their life. And so we have an entire section. We dedicate a lot of time to talking about our mindset because if their thought life is screwed up, they're never going to change their actions. So self-talk, I mentioned Shad at the beginning. So What to Say When You Talk to Yourself is the book title, and it's an incredible book. I will link it down below so that way you can check it out if you want to listen to it or buy the book and read it yourself. I would strongly encourage you to, but he has these 5 different phases that he goes through. And I'm going to go through them really quick just so that you understand what is happening on such a subconscious level. Like we can't see this, but this is happening internally. And Shad spent 20 plus years studying this concept, specifically just this, how our brains work, how they function, doing tests, doing results. And so I'm bringing you knowledge from an expert who spent a lot of time diving into this. So the first thing that he says is he found that programming creates our beliefs. So what that means is what you've been taught as a kid or how your brain has been programmed is what you believe. So if you believe there's not enough money to go around in the world and everything's scarce and I always have to be trying to get free things or finding a way to hold on to what I have, you have a belief that money is limited. And that belief could have come from your family. It could have come from your upbringing. It could have come from a book you read. It could come from so many different things, maybe a religious group you were a part of. But what was programmed in you is what your belief is. And so that's where it's really cool. We can figure out what we believe about different things. What do you believe about marriage, relationships, friendships? And go to the center of where did that programming come from? And is that programming truth? That's the first step. Second step then is your belief. So what you believe about money creates your attitude about it. So if you have an attitude of abundance or positivity, you probably have a belief that we serve an abundant God, or there's always enough to go around. There's room for everyone to be successful, and you think very highly. You're not holding on to this scarce mindset of I have to save, I have to hoard, I have to scrounge to get things, but you hold it open and freely. It shapes your attitude and how you function. Then after we look at that, the third step is your attitude creates the feelings. So at the beginning when I was saying, do you sometimes wish you could go to the gym, but you don't feel motivated? You're not empowered to go do it, or you just kind of feel moody and it's I don't really feel like it. Well, that's a feeling. That's an emotion that's starting to happen within you, which was influenced by your attitude. And we go backwards. Your attitude is influenced by your belief. Your belief is influenced by your programming. So it all starts tracing back to that programming. What your brain has been programmed is what's going to come out. Okay, so attitudes create feelings. Next step is your feelings determine your actions. So that's where if you and I don't learn how to get a grip on our feelings, we are going to struggle all day long to change our actions. But you have to trace it back initially to the programming, again, because there is something messed up in that process, in our belief and our attitude, that's creating that feeling that's keeping us from taking the action we actually want to take in our life. Okay, so the fifth thing is action creates results. So the action you take is creating results. If you have an action step of choosing not to go to the gym every time you don't feel motivated, well, those are the results you're going to get. You're not going to feel as healthy. You're not going to be confident in yourself, because every time you back out, you break these commitments. And it's this cycle of just feeling like you can never get out of this. Or look at the opposite. Your actions are creating results, and potentially you go to the gym even when you don't feel like it. You stay consistent with your exercise. You eat nutritious things. Even if an emotion kind of takes over in a split moment where it's just like, I'm not motivated. But because of your programming and your belief, you can override that emotion and feeling because you've decided what programming you're going to have in your brain. So self-talk, how do we create this? What does this actually practically look like? So in my membership, I've created self-talk for my members where it's like a 1 to 2 minute recording about something specific that they might be battling with. So here's an example. We have one on people pleasing. And a snippet of that is, I am no longer a people pleaser. Why? Because I find my identity in Jesus, not in what people think of me. People have emotions, they have feelings. And so sometimes people like what I do, sometimes they don't like what I do. But because humans are so inconsistent, God doesn't call me to live up to their standard. He calls me to live up to his standard and what his word tells me to do. So instead of being caught up in people pleasing like I used to be, I am so caught up in the words and actions that God is calling me to do in my life. I fill my mind and my heart with what Jesus's direction is for my life. Okay, so there's a lot more that goes into that, but that's a little snippet. That is speaking who you want to become. And we're listening to that day in, day out. So I literally, on my phone, like right here, in my iPhone, I just use voice memos, and it's a free app. I literally record self-talk based on areas I'm wanting to improve or grow in. So right now, at the time of recording this, I'm 35 weeks pregnant. That's something I've done is I have pregnancy self-talk. I have delivery self-talk of how I want all of this to go. And yes, we're holding it open-handed and allowing God to do and allow what's going to happen. But what we're doing is we're taking our thoughts captive, and we're choosing to take ownership of like, this is what I want to happen. This is what I believe to be true. And I can change my programming so that I have the right beliefs that then in return create the right results. So that's what self-talk is. You can record it with your own voice, like even better. You can listen to it from someone else. Like Shad, who wrote this book, actually sold his self-talk. He had like tons of them. I created for my membership. I've had clients who make their own self-talk. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're just reprogramming your mind. You can also do this just through talking to yourself throughout the day, whether it's in your head, even better if it's out loud. So if I'm struggling with something, or I notice like I'm being kind of like negative with myself, or I'm battling with a thought process, I will just start talking to myself. I did this right before I started recording. I started self-talking how this content is going to reach the right people and impact them, because that's what I want to happen. That's why I'm creating this. So learn to talk to yourself, because you're changing your programming when you do that. Okay, that was kind of a lot. So number one, create self-talk. Okay, that's going to reprogram your mind, which reprograms the results you're getting in life. Number two, this is the power of writing. So last week I had the podcast episode about journal prompts. Definitely check out that episode because it was incredible if you didn't listen to it, and I'm building off of this. But self-talk can even go into the power of writing. So you can write in a journal truth of who you want to be, what you're envisioning, who you're wanting to become, and you're proclaiming that over your life. And what is so cool about the power of writing is you can start to identify the toxic programming. So if I have that scarcity mindset around money, and I'm like, money's bad, money's evil, there's a lack, like I can't get enough of it, and that's where I'm stuck. Well, writing that out and kind of getting back to the source of like, where did that programming come from? Did someone teach me that? Did I interpret that? Did I learn that from the Bible? Is it true? Do I believe this? Do I want to believe this? If I keep believing this way, where's that going to lead my life? If I change this belief, where's that going to lead me? And what would that different belief look like? Writing is so powerful because it gives you that space to work through that programming and to figure out what's going on in your thoughts. So that is step number 2 of how to change your thought life so you can actually change your life. So number 1 was creating the self-talk. Number 2, power of writing. Number 3, favorite step right here, because this is the action step, and we're going to start small. What do I mean by this? I mean, start small. I think when we are trying to improve our lives or grow our business or improve like our family dynamic, we want these quick fixes. It's like, can I take my family to counseling and then overnight just everyone loves each other and we're getting along perfectly? Or I want to start a business tomorrow. I want to be a millionaire. It's like, oh my gosh, like there is such a process to everything in life. And I've been thinking about this with having a baby. It's so cool how like even with pregnancy, there's a process of this baby coming. And then this baby comes into the world and there's a process of them growing up and then becoming their own human and an adult. And I'm just here to raise them and help them thrive in the life that God's called them to. Like it is so beautiful to me to think about the process God has created in life, but for everything. And so let's not be people who neglect this process. Let's embrace it and love it and lean into it. So starting small looks like starting small with your self-talk. I'm not saying you need to go create 5 different self-talks and listen to them every day and write 2 pages in your journal and making sure that you're talking to yourself positively all day. No, starting small could be putting your physical journal by your bed, and at night you write 2 words of what you're feeling or what you're thinking, or 1 word of maybe some negative programming you think you might have. So you might write money, you might write marriage, faith, whatever it is. And you're starting small. You're just taking the action step of saying, I'm practicing awareness and I'm starting to notice this. Your self-talk, you might pull up your phone and on your notes app, every time you go to the bathroom or something, you read 1 sentence of self-talk, positive self-talk. So like, I'm no longer a people pleaser because I listen to God. Boom, there you go. There's your self-talk. Do that for a month straight every single day. That'll change your life. When we start small and we give ourselves permission to start small, it starts to compound. It really does. It's like investments. I know I use money as examples all the time, but it's just so tangible and easy to understand. If I invest $1,000 every single month right now at the age I'm at for the next 20 years, that money is going to grow to a lot more money if I never touch it again, but I stay consistent with that investment. It's the same thing with our minds, with good habits, incredible behaviors. It's just starting small. It's going to compound over time and you're going to be able to add to it, but you have to start taking that initiative to create the habit. And oftentimes, we get so excited. We want to jump all in. It's like, yes, I'm going to change this habit. I'm going to make this awesome. But we jump all in and it's so much at once that then it becomes discouraging because we feel like we can't maintain it. Okay, so let's review those 3 steps. So we're going to create self-talk. We're going to change our programming. Step number 2 is the power of writing. Keep writing in your life. Write things down, and record it. So powerful. Step number 3 is start small. Start small. I'm telling you, do it. I'm doing it with you. And let's take action in the things that we can. So there's one thing that I want to explain because I know those of you out there who think similar to me or like my husband, you might be asking the question like, okay, this sounds cool, Callie. Like, yes, talk positively, talk amazing to myself, but what if it's just not true? Like, what if I'm telling myself I'm no longer a people pleaser, but actually I'm like in anxiety about what my mom thinks about me right now? Great question. So there is a word called dissonance. And what this is basically when you have a belief or something you're trying to change, like you're trying to say, I'm no longer a people pleaser, but you actually deep down believe I'm a people pleaser and I will always be a people pleaser. This gap right here between those 2 phases is called dissonance. And we don't want that. Dissonance is creating a clashing when 2 things cannot come in harmony together. And that's going to keep you from actually changing your mindset, because if deep down you don't actually believe you can overcome people pleasing. Yeah, it's like you can say positive things all day long. Like I could sit here and say, wow, I'm like drawing a blank. I could sit here and just say some lie about myself. Like I never will get offended ever again in my life. And I say that again and again and again. It's like, actually, I probably will. Like, I will probably get offended because I'm human. It's in my nature. So we don't want to have a dissonance, a lack of harmony between those two things. And that's where the deep work of like journaling to like really get to the root of a belief can be super powerful. Because if I'm telling myself I'm no longer a people pleaser, but I believe I can't actually overcome that, okay, that's some work to figure out, why do I believe that? What's that rooted in? Do I not think Christ and his grace and what he did on the cross is enough? Do I not believe in the power of it? Because then maybe I have a belief issue around that and his redemption for me and what it means to have freedom, true freedom in Christ. So that is some deep work where we want to create we don't want to have dissonance. We want to create this, yes, beautiful harmony space where it's having faith and hope that requires trust. But at the same time, you have faith, which means you're believing in something that hasn't yet been seen. And that's possible. So I don't want you to feel like I'm telling you, like, just lie to yourself for the rest of your life and your mindset's going to change. No, there's a truth that you have to dig deep to understand why you do or don't believe that that can be possible. And you're going to have to get to the root of it. The other thing is, like, let's say I want to lose 20 pounds and I'm saying, I'm skinny. I love my body. I'm so skinny. I'm so skinny every single day. Well, that may not be the best self-talk to be saying, but what I could say is I steward my body with excellence every day. And I eat foods that are nutritious and make me feel amazing. So I'm not lying to myself saying like I'm skinny if I have 20 pounds to lose. But what I am doing is I'm speaking truth of I take care of myself properly every day. And so you focus on that today. Today, I'm going to drink a ton of water. Today, I'm going to eat foods that make my body feel amazing. Today, I'm going to go move my body and be active for at least 30 minutes. And that's what I'm going to do. And guess what? You continue to speak that and you do that consistently. There you go. You're going to lose that 20 pounds because you're speaking who you're becoming. So we don't have to lie to ourselves. It's not like these big jump goals where you're here, you need to lose 20 pounds and you're saying like you're super skinny. No, you might say like, I lost 3 pounds in a month, you don't even have to get caught up in the numbers. It can be like, I steward my body, and that's what you focus on. So I just wanted to clarify that because I know people who think similar to me might be challenging that and being like, this sounds cool, but hold up, like explain this. And I just want you to know that it comes from a place of faith that we speak these things into existence, not this place of just being super optimistic, but we don't actually believe it. So that was to all the critics out there that, not in a bad way, critics, like I love it. I think it's great that you challenge things like that and you ask that question because it's important that we understand how to push through and how to actually grow in that area. Okay, so podcasters or my podcast listeners, we are done with today's episode, and I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. I have that story that I'm going to share with you about the kid at the church, but this is going to be for my YouTube channel right here that I'm going to share on video. So podcast listeners, if you want to hear the rest of this story about the crazy kid at church, definitely make sure you head to my YouTube channel. You can find it at Callie Ammons. Subscribe, listen. You can watch this entire podcast on video form if you want and also hear the story, but we're going to go ahead and let you go, and I will see you guys next week. Okay, YouTube fam. So Kramer and I are at church, and it is so entertaining just like watching families right now. It's like, I love it. So we're sitting in church, and there is a family of 5 in front of us. They have 3 little boys, and I'm talking little. They were probably like 5'3", no, even younger, like 4'2", and a newborn, it looked like, a few months old. And we're sitting there, and the middle son is running around just like playing with these cars, and he has this little truck and it goes flying off the edge. There's like these little step ups. I shouldn't say little, they're kind of big step ups at our church, like where the rows are, and because of COVID we're so spread out right now, so he had room to be playing. So his truck goes off this ledge, like literally shooting off, and this kid looks back at his dad. He like creaks over his shoulder, and he looks at his dad kind of like, oh no, like, can you come get this for me? And his dad just like shakes his head, like, leave it, because he didn't want to walk up in front of everyone, get under this lady's chair to get this truck. And so what you see, this was like the best thing ever. This kid, this cute little adorable blonde-headed curly head kid looks back at his dad, looks at the truck again, looks back again, and then he grins. And I kid you not, this is a big ledge. The kid just jumps off the ledge with his arms and legs back. He puts his head in the air. It was like slow-mo. And his parents, like you could see them freak out because they were like, oh my gosh. And he lands so perfectly. He grabs his truck and he just turns around and smiles. And that moment made me think of this podcast episode, like everything we just talked about today, because that is the power of believing in yourself. Like that kid, you could see this switch in his mind where he was like, I need my dad to help me. Like I can't get this truck. And then you saw him like assess the situation and something switched in his brain where he was like, I can do this. Like I totally can do this. And he jumps off the ledge in so much confidence and he landed. He landed perfectly fine. He was safe. He got his truck. He climbed back up and he ran over to his parents, and his parents, like you could see they were like concerned, but also laughing like, oh my gosh, did that really just happen? But it made me think of us, because when we have that faith in ourselves and we change our self-talk, like we start to think like, oh, I can't be motivated. I'm never going to get that promotion. I'm never going to get this job. I'm never going to overcome this sin. Whatever that thing is that we feel stuck. When we have that moment and we're like, wait a second, God said I have full access to him. God said I have full access to grace, that I have the power of Jesus Christ living in me. The power that raised him from the dead is in me. That means I can do anything. Like I can overcome this addiction. I can overcome this struggle. When we get that switch as well, just like that little adorable 2-year-old, when we get that switch in our head, we jump, we take action, and we start to move forward in our life because we changed our thoughts, we changed our belief, and now we can step fully into the person that God's calling us to become. And that, my friend, is the most empowering thing that we can do and that we can experience. And that is my prayer and hope for you. So that is it. That's all I have for you today. I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video, for hanging out with me. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet and you love this content, make sure you hit that button, because we are definitely going to be putting so much more content out that focuses on the Enneagram, growth, and becoming the people that God has truly called us to be. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you guys next week.